Mark Levin here. After any presidential election, I take time to reevaluate my own financial investments. That's why I continue to invest in gold for help with my financial protection. When it comes to gold, I only trust Advantage Gold. They're a top gold company in America, and that's who I turn to for my own gold purchases. Call them now at 800-900-8000. That's 800-900-8000 for a free gold investment kit. And see if you qualify for up to $1,000 in free silver. That's 800-900-8000. And tell them Mark Levin sent you. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
All right, we can agree she was drunk, right? Or at least on Xanax, maybe. She's taken, it could have been the after effects of an Ambien. I know Kamala Harris was intoxicated in some way. This video is amazing. There's more to what you've seen already, by the way. We're going to share that with you. You don't have to see it. You can hear it. You can hear the Hennessy vapors and fumes emanating from her breath as she speaks on this video. So it's great audio. It's radio content for the ages. It's Kamala Harris taken to the bottle after her entire life is shattered and ripped away. I would feel sympathy for her if I didn't know what an awful human being she was, if I didn't realize what contempt she holds me in, you in, all of us who dared to vote otherwise this last November, as she stood by and let Joe Biden call us garbage. She laughed about it. She called us Nazis. I'm fine. I'm fine mocking Kamala Harris. I'm Larry O'Connor, sitting in for Mark Levin tonight. By the way, maybe I should introduce myself. I'm raring to go. There's a lot to talk about on this Thanksgiving Day Eve. Larry O'Connor, I'm the radio host on WMAL in Washington, D.C. I do the morning show there called O'Connor and Company. Check it out wherever you live, because it's the internet age, for crying out loud. You know how to listen on the webs. I'm also the host of Larry Every Day at Noon on Town Hall. That's a live video streaming show that we do over on all the Town Hall sites and the Town Hall YouTube channel, or Rumble channel, or wherever you like to do that sort of thing. We stream everywhere. Thanks so much for being part of the Mark Levin show tonight. Mark is off. I'm guessing he's brining his bird, if you know what I mean. I didn't mean anything by it. It just sounds naughty, and so I'm going to... Here's a trick. You can say anything, and then if you follow it up with, if you know what I mean, it sounds a little naughty. So Mark Levin is brining his bird, if you know what I mean. I am, in fact, brining my bird. Do you brine your turkey? I do. I'm happy about it. Very excited for Thanksgiving tomorrow. Very exciting for the Detroit Lions. I'm a kid from Detroit. I was born in Detroit, grew up in the suburbs, a little city called Plymouth, Michigan, right outside of Detroit, about 20 minutes from downtown Detroit, halfway between Detroit and Ann Arbor. Lived in Michigan until I was a teenager. That's when I moved to California. But the Lions playing football on Thanksgiving Day, obviously, an American tradition, and certainly a tradition of my household. You watch the Lions game, and it's like, when is dinner? Dinner is after the Lions game, period. It's that simple. And then during the Lions game, my entire childhood, my entire young adulthood, my entire life, my team, the Detroit Lions, embarrassed me, embarrassed my city, embarrassed my state in front of the entire world. It's like this big deal that the Lions, it's only the Lions and the Cowboys, it's the Lions on Thanksgiving Day. And then they're just a handful of times did they play well. 1 or 2 years with Barry Sanders, we were proud of that team. And now suddenly 2024 comes around. The Detroit Lions are the toast of the town. They're the best team in the NFL. Best record since... They have the best record that the Lions have ever had since before my father was born. My father is 87 years old. And the Lions are off to their best start since before he was born. Also born in Detroit, by the way. What a year. So please, I beg you all, watch the Lions tomorrow. Even if you're a Bears fan, watch the Lions beat up on your Bears. Your season's over. They are America's team. They're the sweetheart, lovable losers from the last, 7 decades. And now suddenly they're playing, and they're entertaining. They're playing with grit. Go Detroit Lions. Just wanted to get that off my chest because it's Thanksgiving, and I'm thankful the Lions finally have a winning record. Death threats against the Trump cabinet and other administration picks, not necessarily at the cabinet level. The violent threats from the organized political left, bullying and intimidating those who have been selected to be part of the Trump administration, targeted with bomb threats and swatting. Reuters has the story published about an hour and a half ago. Several of Vice President-elect Donald Trump's cabinet and administration picks were targeted this week with actions during including bomb threats and swatting. Spokesperson for the transition team said on Wednesday, if you watch Mark Levin's show, you already knew about this. Tom Homan, the designee for Border Czar on Life, Liberty, and Levin.
This administration's turned this world upside down. So now I'm being attacked, right? I got death threats. My family's not even living in my home right now. So all of a sudden, the guys who want to enforce the law are the bad guys. The guys who break the law are the victims. And for those mayors and those governors who say they're going to stop ICE from doing their job, stop me from doing this job, listen to the Lake and Riley tape. Listen to the 17 minutes of this girl suffering, fighting for her life, fighting for her breath. This little girl didn't want to die. She fought like hell. And listen to that tape. That happens every day across this country at the hands of an illegal alien. And finally, I'll say this. President Trump has made it clear. We're going to prioritize public safety threats and national security threats right out of the gate because they pose the most danger to this country. What governor or mayor doesn't want public safety threats and national security threats out of their neighborhoods, out of their communities? That's your number one responsibility. So you can hate Trump all you want, but you got to love your community more than you hate President Trump.
So that's Tom Homan revealing Sunday night to Mark Levin on Life, Liberty, and Levin that he's had death threats, that he's had to move his family out of their home because of the threats to him. He's not intimidated. Media says nothing. I do a morning show, as I said, in Washington, D.C. Monday morning, we talked about this 3 different times throughout the morning. We talked about this, played that audio. No one at the New York Times, no one at Reuters then had any interest in it. It wasn't until today when we got a flurry of statements. The first one here from Elise Stefanik. She is the nominee for ambassador to the United Nations. She says, well, her office put out this statement. This morning, Congresswoman Elise Stefanik, her husband, and their 3-year-old son driving home from Saratoga County from Washington for Thanksgiving when they were informed of a bomb threat to their residence. New York State County law enforcement, U.S. Capitol Police responded immediately with the highest level of professionalism. We're incredibly appreciative. Bomb threat at Elise Stefanik's home. That's not all. Brooke Rollins, she is the nominee for Secretary of Agriculture. This morning we learned that a threat was issued against our home and family. Thanks to the swift efforts of the Fort Worth Police Department, we were unharmed and quickly returned home. I want to express my deep gratitude, and on and on. That's not all. Lee Zeldin, he's the nominee for EPA. Pipe bomb threat targeting me and my family at our home today was sent in with a pro-Palestinian themed message. Boy, we'll never really know the motive of these random acts of violence. My family are not home at the time and are safe. We're working with law enforcement to learn more. How many more does it take? How many more does it? And what was the narrative in this country during the entire campaign? What's been the narrative in this country? Even before Trump, the false narrative. I remember from the Tea Party movement, these violent extremists, violent right-wing extremists. Where's the violence exactly? Were there Democrat congressmen who were practicing for a baseball game that got shot on a baseball field in Alexandria, Virginia? No, those were Republicans. Was it a Democrat pro-abortion activist group that got attacked by a madman terrorist in Washington, D.C.? No, that was the Family Research Council, an anti-abortion group. Was it Joe Biden or Kamala Harris that had to duck behind a podium because a bullet grazed their ear, an assassin's attempt? No, that was Donald Trump. I'm trying to square the circle and figure out where all these violent right-wing extremists are. Oh, January 6th. Sure, January 6th. Yeah, that's what it was. That was it. More devastating than 9/11 was January 6th, and that's it. That's all we talk about. Donald Trump's a Hitler. Donald Trump's a fascist. Donald Trump will unleash his legion of violent extremists against his political opponents. And here we are 3 weeks in to the transition, and we've got multiple death threats and bomb threats against political appointees and against potential cabinet members. So Tom Homan was on Fox earlier today talking specifically about the details of these threats now, and I want you to hear some of it.
But I'll be honest with you, I have not taken it serious up to this point. Now that I know what's happening in the last 24 hours, I will take it a little more serious. But look, I've been dealing with this when I was the ICE director in the first administration. I had numerous death threats. I had a security detail with me all the time. Even after I retired, the death threats continued. And even after I retired as the ICE director, I had U.S. Marshals protection for a long time to protect me and my family. And what doesn't help is all the negative press around the president and people he's putting in his cabinet. Me, I'm not in the cabinet, but, I've read numerous hit pieces on me. I'm a racist and, I'm the father of family separation, all this other stuff. So the hate media doesn't help at all because there are some nuts out there that will take advantage. So
that's absolutely right. And it's time for a reckoning here on this. It's time for these journalists, these reporters, these teleprompter readers, and the corporations who employ them and pay them big bucks. It's time for them to step up and show a little bit of responsibility here and show a little bit of circumspection over how they have poisoned the political dialogue in this country right now. We've got men and women who are stepping up to do their patriotic duty, serve the president-elect, a president who won in an overwhelming fashion. He has the support of the American people, certainly more so than his predecessor. He did everything after throwing everything they could at Donald Trump, after trying to throw him in jail, after trying to keep him off the ticket, after demonizing him for years, after twice attempting to impeach him. The American people stood up and they said, no, really, this is the guy we want. He faced off against all of the news media, all of the pop culture, every late night comedian, every Saturday Night Live cast member, everyone in major academia on campuses and universities. He stood up against the entirety of pop culture and worldwide media. But he left it to the people of this country to have their final verdict, and they did, and he won. He did everything he was supposed to do. And now, as he, at lightning speed, puts together an incredibly impressive cabinet of people with diverse backgrounds, diverse levels of education, diverse socioeconomic status, and, diverse perspectives and ideas. There are some people on this cabinet who probably don't agree with each other on a lot with regard to the economy, with regard to taxes, with regard to climate change, with regard to a whole lot of things. But they all agree on one thing. They agree to carry out President-elect Donald Trump's agenda. And Trump has said, if you're going to do what our plan is here, and you're going to execute your job based on my direction as the CEO of this operation, then I don't care if you believe in climate change. I don't care if you believe in vaccinations or don't believe in vaccinations. I don't care if you believe we should have socialized medicine. I don't even care if you think babies should be killed in the womb. Donald Trump said, you all have different positions on all that stuff. I need you to have one position when it comes to me, my direction, my policies, and my agenda. Because I've been really clear about what I'm going to do. I've told the American people what I'm going to do. They've given me this opportunity. So you're either with me or you're not. And they all said, Mr. President, we're here for you. You don't get any, Do not get more diverse than that. Everyone's saying, oh, Robert Kennedy Jr. is going to be Health and Human Services. He's pro-choice. Yeah, I don't like that. But guess what? Roe v. Wade is gone, and abortion is not a federal issue at this time. That Tulsi Gabbard, she used to support Bernie Sanders' socialized medicine. Yeah, she sure did, and she's also the director of national intelligence. Has nothing to do with medicine or health care. I got a better question for all of you. Show me the pro-life member of the Biden cabinet. Show me the member of the Biden cabinet that disagreed with anyone else on that cabinet with fundamental principles and ideas of their party, and you won't find them. I'm told diversity is a good thing. Diversity is our strength. Well, you're not going to find another ideologically diverse presidential cabinet that Donald Trump has offered you. They're all ready to go. They're all professional. They're all qualified. And so what's going to stop them? Well, how about death threats? How about bullying? How about intimidation? How about making it uncomfortable for their families? You know, you see a headline like this. Elise Stefanik driving back home with her husband and 3-year-old child. There's a bomb threat on the house. And you read it and you say, oh, that's terrible. And then you just move on. Think about that child. Think about that family. Think about her parents, Elise Stefanik's parents, the grandparents of that child. Think about her husband. Think about their friends and their extended family members. The entire reason that people do things like this is to bully and intimidate, try to get in people's heads, and try to keep them from fulfilling their duty. That's what this is about. They're trying to stop this president before he even starts. I've got more to talk about this, and the hypocrisy of the media, the hypocrisy of the left, the things they've said about us when it's really them. This is very serious. It's incredibly serious because this is what keeps great people from participating in our government. But it's not going to work. I got more to say. Keep it here. Larry O'Connor in for Mark Levin.
Mark Levin.
Did you see what the Federal Reserve did literally days after President Trump's victory? It's lowered interest rates by 1/4. Do you know why it did that? It's worried about the economy. It's worried about the fact that jobs aren't being created. We're seeing all kinds of shifts in our portfolios, and it's important to stay aware. That's why I'm urging everyone to diversify and consider gold as one of your financial shields. Now, gold has weathered every kind of economic downturn throughout history. I want you to call Advantage Gold. They're the best of the best, folks. I've dealt with all of them. They're the best. They're my gold company. 1-800-900-8000. Get a free gold investment kit to see how you can get started with gold. I recommend Advantage Gold to anyone who's serious about protecting their wealth, and that's you. Call 800-900-8000 for your free gold investment kit, and you can even qualify for up to $1,000 in free silver. That's 800-900-8000. Call them now. Tell them Mark Levin sent you. You'll be very happy with them. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional.
It's Larry O'Connor in for Mark Levin this evening. By the way, 877-381-3811 is our number, 877-381-3811. Love to talk with you and tell us what you're grateful for. I mean, we all know one major thing we're grateful for here. And we're going to get into the giant bullet we all dodged with that, what can only be described as a hot mess, Kamala Harris, and what is clearly some sort of substance abuse problem that we're seeing manifest in this video. Whether it's alcohol or Xanax or listen, the other option is she's not drunk, she's not intoxicated, she's not in any way inhibited in any way or impaired. She's just weird. Okay, we'll go with that. But I want to talk more about these death threats against members because they're going to increase. There's going to be more of them unless something's done about it. And if the media just stops everything they've been doing, but I doubt they will. We'll get into it next.
The markets are volatile. They're shooting up wildly only to drop without warning. The Fed just cut rates yet again, this time by 1/4 point. Why? Because the Federal Reserve is not confident the economy is strong. In fact, last month only 12,000 jobs were created, all of them in the government. That's why I'm telling you again, diversification is crucially important. And diversification with gold is what I do. And the company I use, and I've used many, the best one is Advantage Gold. Call them now at 800-900-8000 for a free gold investment kit to see how gold gold can help you diversify your investments and take advantage now. Now, gold has been helping to protect and grow wealth for people for thousands of years. And in these times, it can be more crucial than ever. When it comes to gold, I trust Advantage Gold. They're one of the top gold companies in America. They're who I turn to when I purchase gold. Call them now, 800-900-8000. Call 800-900-8000 now for a free gold investment kit to see how gold can help you with your investment portfolio, a.k.a. your bank accounts, your paycheck. And when you do, you can qualify for $1,000 in free silver. That's 800-900-8000. Folks, don't wait. Call them now, 800-900-8000, and tell them Mark Levin sent you. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional.
Mark Levin, the cure for the common liberal. Talk to Mark now at 877-381-3811.
It's Larry O'Connor sitting in for Mark Levin. Appreciate you being part of the conversation here as well, if you'd like to. 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. As we break apart this story here, there's two aspects of this story about the death threats, bullying, and intimidation tactics being utilized against appointees for the incoming Trump administration. This is a federal crime. All of this is federal crime. Where's Merrick Garland? I didn't see Christopher Wray taking to the podium. They put out a statement. We take these things very seriously. Show us. Prove it. Why don't you put out a display of some sort? You know, God knows if they spotted some grandma that was walking across the lawn in front of the Capitol on January 6th, they would tackle her and wrestle her to the ground and perp walk her in front of all of the salivating reporters and cameramen from the networks. Add that to the 1,600 January 6th arrests that they have made. Of course, none of them charged with insurrection, even though we're told it was an insurrection. If you take this seriously, then where's the press conference with the Attorney General saying this must stop? Where's President Biden? I was told that violence has no place in the democratic process in our constitutional republic. Of course, they wouldn't use those words. Those are accurate and historical. They'd say in our democracy. Either way, you're really worked up about this. Where's the statement to show that there is no tolerance for this sort of thing? Death threats against people who have been appointed to the Trump cabinet. There's three aspects of this that we got to discuss. First, I want you to hear more from Tom Homan, who discussed this today. Here's the thing. Tom Homan, if I may say, is a badass. He's been in law enforcement. He's from New York, first of all. So that already ups the BA quotient. He's been in law enforcement his entire career. He's seen it all. He's dealt with it all. You can hear from Tom Homan that he's not intimidated at all. Listen.
If I'm not home, my family's not home. And they're not home right now, but when I return home, I'm going to bring them home. But I was of the attitude lately that if you want some, come get some. Because, you know, I've been through this many, many times. And but, again, what I've learned today, I'll start taking a little more serious.
Do you think that there's a role you can play once you're in position and come January 20th? Do you think there's a role that you can play with your leadership and seniority in the second term of President Trump's administration that can help to sort of bring an end to these kinds of threats that we've been seeing now, as you mentioned, against Republican officials and Democratic officials?
Well, I think the first role is not to be intimidated. I'm not going to be intimidated by these people. They're not going to silence me. Look, I'm going to do this job. I'm going to do this job because it's an issue of national security. So you're not going to shut me up. I'm not going away, and I'm going to do this job, and I'm going to continue talking to the American people why it needs to be done. I think under the Trump administration, I think we're going to be very transparent because the big issue, right, securing the border and doing this deportation operation. We're going to be very transparent. We're going to tell the American people exactly what we're doing, how we're doing it. So we're going to control the narrative, and we're going to educate the American people why this is necessary.
And they don't even have to do much of it because the polls show right now something like 70% or 80% of Americans agree that criminal illegal aliens should be deported. And by the way, it should be 100%. You know why? Because it's already the law. You know, every time everyone says, oh, my gosh, these mass deportations are going to be. Yeah, there's another word for the deportations that are planned right now that were were campaigned on, promised, and won the election. There's another word for them. It's called upholding the law. The law, as written, as negotiated and debated and voted on in Congress, and then sent to the president for his signature. It's been on the books for years, if not decades. You break immigration law, you are subject to deportation, and if there is a deportation order issued, you will be deported. Period. Especially if you're coming to this country illegally. But that holds true for legal immigrants. You come into this country legally, you get a green card, you violate our laws, you are subject to deportation. Why is this even controversial? Tom Homan says, you want some, get some. He's not intimidated, he's doing his job. That's Tom Homan. As I mentioned, he's a badass. You think about Elise Stefanik for a moment. A mother of a 3-year-old who's been appointed as ambassador to the United Nations. I think she's pretty tough. I do. But if she said, you know what, on second thought, I can't put my family in danger, would any of us hold it against her? See, that's what these tactics are meant to do. Let me get to my second point here. It dovetails into it. I was here in Washington, D.C., covering the first Trump administration. Let me tell you something. His win over Hillary Clinton was remarkable, phenomenal, absolutely stunning. During the transition time, during the time we're in right now, you remember it took a while for them to get cabinet positions filled. There were a lot of interviews. There was the parade of people at the lobby of Trump Tower in Manhattan. They had a process. They went through it. But one of the big problems, because he had never been president before and the infrastructure around him, a lot of the people, they had some good people in there that knew how to get this done, but they had a lot of people who didn't. Never done it before. But one of the real problems was it was hard to get people to agree to work for this guy because they didn't know him. They didn't know what to make of him. They weren't sure about him. So there were a lot of qualified people who normally would jump at the opportunity to work for a Republican administration who sort of, had cold feet because this guy, let's face it, was not the norm and they didn't have experience with him. But a lot of them, even if they were willing to work for President Trump, they were scared away. They were intimidated out of the job. They took their name out of the running and didn't even want to be considered because already at this time, just 3 weeks after the election, they were already beginning the Russian collusion narrative. They had already started the storyline. Whispers in Washington, D.C. became open conversations in bars and restaurants and in lobbies of very nice hotels where business gets done. And people were openly saying he's going to be impeached. He's going to be impeached because he's compromised. He's a Russian asset. These were Republicans who said this. Don't forget, within 45 minutes of Trump's swearing in on Inauguration Day, the Washington Post ran the story on their website that the impeachment process of Donald Trump had already begun. The deep state Leviathan beast that is Washington, D.C., and the organized Democrat subculture connected to the propaganda media created an entire intimidation campaign that terrified, qualified, well-meaning, good men and women who would have been great public servants for the Trump White House and in the Trump administration, absolutely terrified them from having even a meeting with the transition team. Because they believed this. Because the FBI was already part of the narrative. It was openly discussed in Washington that if you take a job in the Trump administration, you better be prepared to lawyer up. You better be prepared for an impeachment. You better be prepared to be subpoenaed. You better be prepared to be called in. It's gonna cost you. Because that deep state Leviathan and the media and the Democrat culture in Washington, they lost the election, but they sure as hell weren't going to lose the administration. They weren't going to lose those 4 years. They were going to do whatever they could to clutch into power and dig their fingernails in and keep a hold of power regardless of the election. And to a certain extent, it worked. To a certain extent, it worked. But see, this administration is different. This transition is different. What can you say about Donald Trump that hasn't already been said? What can you accuse him of that you haven't already accused him of? What can you do to him that you haven't already done to him? And he keeps getting up. He keeps getting up for more. And then he won. And so they can't do that. They can't say that Putin stole the election. They can't say, well, he doesn't have a mandate because it was a narrow victory. They can't say, well, he doesn't have a mandate because he didn't win the popular vote. You can't say, well, he doesn't have a mandate because he didn't have coattails, because he turned a 49-seat minority in the Senate to a 53-seat majority in the Senate. You can't say any of those things. So what do? Well, release the hounds. Let's start the death threats. Maybe a pipe bomb threat here. Swatting there. Maybe, we'll knock him a little off kilter. Maybe we'll ice the kicker a bit. These are bad, bad people. And it's going to get worse before it gets better. But the final point on this, which I think, sort of really brings it home, is the story that we saw just yesterday with regard to violence in America and hate crimes and bullying and intimidation, political intimidation. And no, it's not this story that we're discussing today. It's not the death threats and the bomb threats and the bullying and the intimidation and the attempts to silence members of the Trump cabinet. No. This is a story that the Washington Post apparently was working on. A reporter named Emmanuel Felton sent a note to the incoming spokesperson for the White House, Caroline Levitt. She's currently the spokesperson for the campaign. It says, I'm writing about an incident that happened in Lawnside, New Jersey, 2 days after the election. A local resident discovered that someone had sprayed "I hate N-word. Sorry, not sorry." Now, a reporter at the Washington Post is doing an article about graffiti on a home in Lawnside, New Jersey that used a racial slur. And to finish the story, this reporter reaches out to the spokesperson for the Trump campaign for comment. And here's the comment they're looking for. Get this. What happened in Lawnside was part of a wave of racial incidents that occurred in the days following Trump's reelection. Around the time that Heinz's fence was sprayed, black people across the country were receiving text messages that said they'd been selected to pick cotton at the nearest plantation. And at the same time that Lawnside residents came together to discuss the graffiti on Heinz's fence, a group of self-identified neo-Nazis marched and shouted the same slur in Columbus, Ohio. While none of these events can be traced directly back to Trump, experts say his rhetoric has been tied to an increase in hate crimes across the country. This is a reporter. This is a professional news reporter for the Washington Post who has cobbled together a story about these alleged hate crime incidents and then reached out to the Trump campaign and transition team and says in the email, none of these events can be directly linked back to Trump, but experts say that his rhetoric has been tied to an again. Experts said it. So that's where their focus is. Now, again, I remind you, this is 3 days after Tom Homan said on Mark Levin's show, on the highest rated cable news station in the country, that he had received death threats, bona fide death threats, he and his family. And now we've learned of more death threats and bomb threats against members of the Trump transition and the new administration. And this guy wants a comment from the Trump transition team and campaign about alleged racial slurs that he admits aren't directly linked in any way to Donald Trump. Do you see the point here? Do you see what we are dealing with? Do you see what Trump and the people who want to work in this administration and fix this country, because that's what the American people need and want, what they are facing? And then do you see what you and I are facing? With this well-financed, obsessive propaganda machine who want to write articles like this while actual threats are being made to individuals and their families because they want to be good public servants and serve in the next White House. This begins and ends with the media. If a grown-up at Universal Comcast, a grown-up at Warner, a grown-up at AT&T, whoever owns CNN now, grown-ups at Disney who own ABC, grown-ups at Viacom who own the propaganda beast that's now known as CBS News, Bezos, if he can be a grown-up over at the Washington Post, if grown-ups can stand up, they own these things. It's their sandbox. They can make the rules. If they could call each and every one of these people in and say, stop it now. It's over. You lost. The American people have spoken. Donald Trump, his cabinet, and his voters are not your enemy. That's what needs to be done. And that will go a long way to fixing so much of this. And if they ignore the grown-ups, if they ignore Bezos, if they ignore Comcast Universal, if they ignore Viacom and Disney, then they're fired. They're gone. Go find a new sandbox. Go make your own sandbox. I'm Larry O'Connor. It's the Mark Levin Show.
Mark Levin.
Did you see what the Federal Reserve did literally days after President Trump's victory? It's lowered interest rates by a quarter. Do you know why it did that? It's worried about the economy. It's worried about the fact that jobs aren't being created. We're seeing all kinds of shifts in our portfolios, and it's important to stay aware. That's why I'm urging everyone to diversify and consider gold as one of your financial shields. Now, gold has weathered every kind of economic downturn throughout history. I want you to call Advantage Gold. They're the best of the best, folks. I've dealt with all of them. They're the best. They're my gold company. 1-800-900-8000. Get a free gold investment kit to see how you can get started with gold. I recommend Advantage Gold to anyone who's serious about protecting their wealth, and that's you. Call 800-900-8000 for your free gold investment kit, and you could even qualify for up to $1,000 in free silver. That's 800-900-8000. Call them now. Tell them Mark Levin sent you. You'll be very happy with them. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional.
Larry O'Connor in from Mark Levin. Want to move on from these death threats and the bullying and the intimidation. They're trying to stop. Listen, Russian collusion isn't going to work again. They can't keep going back to that well. They're not done. They will not quit. It's desperation time for them. So this is the beginning. There's going to be more of it, and they're going to have more tactics. Let me try to get to a phone call here quickly. We don't have a whole lot of time, but how about Robert in Athens listening on WVNN? I'm Larry O'Connor. Thanks for calling the Mark Levin Show, Robert.
Hey, man, you doing all right?
All right. Yeah, it's Thanksgiving. What could be better?
Oh, ain't nothing better than Thanksgiving.
That's
Belly
right.
full of food.
Go ahead quickly.
Oh, I'll volunteer for whatever Mr. Homan needs, and I'll volunteer for the people that are getting threatened with my bombs.
You got Tom Homan's back. You know what, Robert? Thank you for that. I mean, that is part of the issue here. Part of the solution is not just getting the media to calm down, but to remind them that the American people are.
This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
My name's Larry O'Connor. I'm sitting in for Mark Levin today on this Thanksgiving Eve. Love this day on the calendar. Absolutely love it. It's a great day because you're getting ready. You're probably preparing food right now. You could be brining your bird right now, and I'm glad to be riding shotgun with you while you do it. Thanks for being part of this Wednesday show, 877-381-3811. I'm a radio talk show host in Washington, D.C. I do the morning show on WMAL, Mark's station here in the nation's capital. You can also catch me every day at noon, streaming a live streaming show on Town Hall Media. That's on all the social media and streaming platforms, YouTube, Rumble, or wherever you want to do that stuff. You just heard my phone ring. That was Kurt Schlichter, my colleague at Town Hall, giving me a call. Kurt, I'm sitting in for Mark Levin right now. I'll call him back later. Maybe we'll get him on the air. Love Kurt Schlichter. Great columnist over at Town Hall. Kamala Harris put out a video to her funders and supporters yesterday, and it was late in the afternoon, early evening when this thing broke. Why they put this video out, I will never know. I mean, I understand she's the candidate. She's been humiliated publicly. She wasted $1.5 billion, still left $20 million of campaign debt. Back in my day, $20 million was a lot of money. Now, I understand that she needed, after a couple of weeks in Hawaii, to communicate to her grassroots supporters and volunteers and campaign staff, as well as to these big funders and donors, anything to explain what's going on with her and what her future might be. Why the video then had to be deliberately released to the American people so we could see what a sorry, sad state this woman is in, I will never know. It's horrible. And this 28-second snippet was actually released on the official social media account of the Democrat Party. Now, I want you to listen to this. The woman who would be president, the woman who everyone in the media, how many newspapers? It had to be 98% of the major newspapers in America endorsed Kamala Harris, saying that she was the one fully capable and qualified and ready to take over on day one to steer this nation into prosperity and security. Listen to this woman now. And I've got one simple question for you. What is she on? Is it wine? Is it Hennessy? Is it scotch? Or is it prescriptions? We got a Valley of the Dolls situation here. Is she on Xanax, barbiturates of some kind? It's not a question of whether she is impaired. The question is what has impaired her. And again, if they want to come at me and say that I'm spreading false rumors and there's no evidence or proof that she's in any way intoxicated, okay, all right, hold on. I will leave open the possibility that she has some sort of brain damage. That she is impaired mentally in some natural way without some sort of third-party substance impairing her brain from functioning properly. I'll grant that as a possibility. But short of any of that evidence, I'm thinking she's wasted. Take a listen.
I just have to remind you, don't you ever let anybody take your power from you. You have the same power that you did before November 5th. And you have the same purpose that you did. And you have the same ability to engage and inspire. So don't ever let anybody or any circumstance take your power from you.
You know, it's the day before Thanksgiving, and I'm reminded, I'm sure you had this experience. You're 12 years old, you know, all the family's over. There's that one aunt that never had kids because, you know, she wanted to have a carefree lifestyle, devil may care kind of future. I don't want to be bogged down by kids. I want to travel and I want to see the world. And now she's gotten to an age where even if she wanted to have kids, she couldn't. It's biologically. Are we allowed to actually use biological facts and science when it comes to women and men's biology anymore? Well, let's just go with it. She can't have kids anymore, but now she's sad. And when she comes over for Thanksgiving and she sees all the kids, she probably drinks a little too much. And then she probably corners you in the family room and she starts asking you, acting like she's the caring, drunk, childless aunt who cares so much about what's going on in your life. And now tell me about your friends and how are the grades? And do you need any help? I just want you to know that you've always been my favorite nephew. And you are capable of anything. You just dream the biggest dreams. And I want you to know that I'm here for you. I'm here for you and I will support you. I think of you as my own child sometimes. So if you need any help at all, you just let me. The drunk, childless, kind of sad aunt at Thanksgiving, cornering you there between the Lions game and the Cowboys game. Getting a little too close to your face, telling you how much she cares and how much she wants to help you.
And you have the same purpose that you did. And you have the same ability to engage and inspire.
It's just so great. I just really wanted to thank you. Thank you for that. Did you hear this one thing? Let's isolate this one moment. Listen to how she pronounces ability. You've always been in this. You've been in this situation before. Maybe you've been the one who's had one too many. But I know you've been at a party where someone's had one too many and they just overshare a little bit. I love you, man. You're the best. I don't know what I'd be without you. Listen to her say this word, say ability.
And you have the same ability to engage and inspire.
No, the question is not, is she drunk? The question is, what exactly is she on? Also, this whole message that she's trying to say, don't let anyone, what does it take your strength from you?
So don't ever let anybody or any circumstance take your power from you.
Yeah, don't let them take your power from you. You know, we're going to get some great tell-all books about this campaign. We're going to get some great tell-all books about the Biden White House. We're going to get great inside, behind-the-scenes tell-all books about Kamala Harris as vice president. And my prediction is that some of those tell-alls about Kamala Harris will reveal that it has been an open secret in the Biden administration that she has some kind of substance abuse problem. I'm sorry. This is my opinion. I'm allowed to express my opinion. But the things that have been known about high-level Democrat politicians that are kept secret for years as long as they're in power, that then get revealed years later. Look at the Clintons. Look at John Edwards, who was going to be vice president, and all the secrets that everyone was happy to keep about him behind closed doors. As long as he wins, as long as he gets into power, that's fine. As soon as, he loses, well, then the secrets come out. Well, the secrets are going to come out about her, and let me prove it to you. Listen to it again. Here she is. This is the message in yesterday's video.
To engage and inspire. So don't ever let anybody or any circumstance take your power from you.
All right, so everyone's saying, well, that's extraordinary. That's just weird. That's bizarre. What's going on there? Let me just say something. I've been covering this White House since day one. I've been covering the campaign since it began in 2020. I've been covering Kamala Harris for years before that as a former Californian. This is who she is. This is not new. This is not stunning. This is not revelatory. I've been playing audio on the air of Kamala Harris acting like she's on something on a very regular basis. Here's Vice President Harris speaking to at the U.S. Embassy in the Philippines. This is over 2 years ago. You listen to this and you tell me if this sounds familiar to you.
And in that way, then, never let anyone take your joy from you. I call myself a joyful warrior. Right? Never let anyone take your joy from you. You do what you got to do. And isn't that a wonderful way to live? To know you have purpose. To know you can make a difference. To know, as you must know, I implore you, you must know, you make and will make a difference.
All right, now, that's over 2 years ago. That was November of 2022. So, excuse me, that's just over 2 years ago. And that is in Manila, the Philippines, the vice president over there at the embassy. Same vapid, insipid, fortune cookie prose that sounds like a bad AI rendition of an Oprah self-help book. But also the same halting, slurred, shaky, seemingly intoxicated delivery. And I'm putting two and two together here, but there is a common denominator. What I just played for you from 2 years ago is Kamala Harris in the Philippines after she has flown several hours in the plane to get to the Philippines. And the other video that we played for you, this is Kamala Harris yesterday.
I just have to remind you, don't you ever let anybody take your power from you.
Now, this is after she had traveled several hours on a plane coming back from Hawaii to San Francisco and then eventually to Washington, D.C. after the video was done. So, and now listen, I know people who, when they got on a plane and they have to travel long distances and they want to sleep, they'll take an Ambien. They'll take a pharmaceutical. They'll take a Xanax. They'll take something else to take the edge off. Listen, I'm doing the work that mainstream propaganda journalists refuse to do. Because you cannot look at any of this stuff with an objective eye and walk away saying, oh, yeah, she's totally normal. Nothing weird about that behavior. Nothing weird about that pattern of speech. Nothing weird about her. And I know if you're sitting there thinking, oh, who cares? She lost. It's over. No. First of all, number one, she's running again. Number two, she could run for governor of California in 2 years. Number three, she's still the vice president of the United States and one very fragile 82-year-old heartbeat away from the presidency for the next 50-plus days. And finally, number five, she has lied, and the party and the apparatus has lied to all of us about who this woman is and what her capabilities are. She was never fully vetted in any way whatsoever. And any story that did come out about her or her husband, the media ignored because they had an election to win, damn it. They had to do whatever they could to defeat Donald Trump. Now, here's a little bit what, so I'm sure everybody has heard this speech, the one where she barely says the word ability.
And you have the same ability.
Yeah, that one. You've heard that 30-second clip. But my buddy Charlie Spearing literally wrote a book about Kamala Harris. Came out this year. It's called Amateur Hour, Kamala Harris in the White House. He could do the sequel, Amateur Hour, Kamala Harris on the campaign trail. He found a longer clip later in this video that's even worse. She even does the drunk lady hiccup in the middle of a sentence. Where, I love you, man, and you've always been my best friend, and I can always count on you, and I just love you so much. She does one of those. Take a listen.
We are all in this together. And on this practical eve of Thanksgiving, I wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving with the ability and to find the ability at this moment.
All right, now I got to play that again because you're going to think that there was some glitch in the audio. That was not an edit. That wasn't a glitch. No, that was her. That was her voice with that literal hiccup. Like a little bit of the black cherry White Claw seltzer was coming back on her because she had just had her 15th one at the tailgate. All right, that was a little specific. I'm talking about the Navy football game from 2 weeks ago. But here she is again. Listen.
Wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving with the ability and to find the ability at this moment.
God.
To just remember there is so much to be thankful for.
Yeah, there is.
And so I wish for you that you are surrounded by the people you love and who love you. As you know, I encourage you to be around family in whatever way you compose that family, but to take a moment and just reflect on all the good you have done and all the good you have yet to do.
Man, oh man, did we dodge a bullet. All right, this is important because lies were told to you, to the American people, to the media, and to her donors. And we're going to get into those lies in just a moment because people in this campaign are talking. They're still whistling past the graveyard, but we're going to break it down for you next. I'm Larry O'Connor. It's the Mark Levin Show.
Mark Levin.
Folks, have you ever thought about what charities and causes you give your hard-earned money to? Pure Talk, my cell phone company, supports veterans. As a veteran-led company, that's their passion project. And that's why Pure Talk has slashed $10 million in veteran debt. That's why they donate tens of thousands of dollars every month to help prevent veteran suicide. That's why they donate $50,000 to Micro Works, providing scholarships to veterans learning the trades after active duty. Now, isn't that a company you can get behind? Time to jump ship from these other three guys. There's a better option. Pure Talk gives you the same great coverage, America's most dependable 5G network, for half the cost. And you'll be supporting a company that is helping our vets. It's a win-win. Dial pound 250. Say keyword Mark Levin. You'll be connected to Pure Talk's U.S. call center. That's right. They invest in American jobs to better serve you. And remember, they're half the price of the big three. Go to puretalk.com/Levin today. That's puretalk.com/Levin. Switch to a company that invests in American jobs to better serve you. Again, go to puretalk.com/Levin. You'll get an additional 50% off your first month. Pure Talk, America's wireless company.
I'm Larry O'Connor in for Mark Levin today. Yeah, they lied to us about Kamala Harris's abilities, whatever issue she's got with alcohol or prescription drugs, whatever it is that makes her slur her speech and look incoherent. That's why she was protected so much. That's why she was in a bubble. That's why everything was scripted. But then here's David Plouffe yesterday. He's the data guy. He's the polling guy. He's the numbers guy.
Got in, my recollection is some of that snapped back, but, we were behind. I mean, I think it surprised people because there was these public polls that came out in late September, early October, showing us with leads that we never saw. It was just basically a race that in the battlegrounds was 46-47, 47-48. So
you hear that? There were public polls. That's, Washington Post, CNN, New York Times. Public polls showed that we had the lead, but internally we never saw that. And yet they kept telling their donors, oh, we're in the lead. We're going to win this. We're going to win this. And I understand you have to have a positive attitude. But when you're shoveling piles of money over, millions upon millions, to the tune of $1.5 billion, and you continue to look at those donors and say, absolutely, just look at the New York Times. We're in the lead. When the whole time they knew they never had a lead in this election. Well, it's fraud. It's absolute fraud. They're frauds and they're liars, and they did whatever they had to try to win, and they lost. And coming up in a moment, we're going to talk about what the victory looks like for Trump, for America, and for you. Larry O'Connor for Mark Levin.
Folks, have you ever thought about what charities and causes you give your hard-earned money to? Pure Talk, my cell phone company, supports veterans. As a veteran-led company, that's their passion project. And that's why Pure Talk has slashed $10 million in veteran debt. That's why they donate tens of thousands of dollars every month to help prevent veteran suicide. That's why they donate $50,000 to Micro Works, providing scholarships to veterans learning the trades after active duty. Now, isn't that a company you can get behind? Time to jump ship from these other three guys. There's a better option. Pure Talk gives you the same great coverage, America's most dependable 5G network, for half the cost. And you'll be supporting a company that is helping our vets. It's a win-win. Dial pound 250. Say keyword Mark Levin. You'll be connected to Pure Talk's U.S. call center. That's right. They invest in American jobs to better serve you. And remember, they're half the price of the big three. Go to puretalk.com/Levin today. That's puretalk.com/LEVIN. Switch to a company that invests in American jobs to better serve you. Again, go to puretalk.com/Levin. You'll get an additional 50% off your first month. Pure Talk, America's wireless company.
Yes, it's true that Mark Levin is the fastest growing radio show in America. The Mark Levin Show is on at 877-381-3811.
Larry O'Connor in for Mark Levin here. And I haven't taken any of your calls, 877-381-3811. We will take your calls here, but I want to reiterate what a disaster this campaign was. You're just now hearing it, and it's important now that these people from the inside, David Plus, Stephanie Cutter, all the smart people, all the brilliant people in Washington, and if you notice, they all say the same thing. They all say the same thing, that she ran a flawless campaign. Shit, none of the problem is with the candidate. Oh, and they're saying, oh, we had these headwinds. Oh, I love the headwinds line. Let me find you the headwinds. Oh, it was just a really tough situation. And yeah, here.
I mean, look, I am not media hater by any measure. And I think that, we women don't get far in life.
Sorry. My bad. Yeah, this is Jen O'Malley Dillon, by the way. She's making all the excuses about what happened. We only had 107 days. Right. They raised $1.5 billion in 107 days. And they still ended up $20 million in debt. And then she's, well, there was a narrative out there that we didn't want to talk to the media, because they didn't talk to the media. And, and this was a double standard they held Kamala Harris to. They never held Donald Trump to, because Donald Trump talked to the media every day. J.D. Vance at a rally would actually have a live mic handed to the reporters that were at the rally so he could answer questions live in front of the crowd. She was scripted, she was in a bubble, and she still looked like a mess. The handful of questions she did take, she blew. She went on The View. Kamala Harris going on The View. To call that a softball media appearance is really insulting to softball. It's marshmallow ball. And she's asked the one question that you would think a vice president running to succeed her boss, the president, would be able to answer in her sleep. Can you think of anything you would do differently? And after hemming and hawing and cackling like a fool, she says nothing comes to mind. So they'll all make these excuses. My favorite one was when they were asked about the Joe Rogan thing. Joe Rogan, whether she should go on Joe Rogan or not.
Can you just, not to be tedious about it, could you talk a little bit about how close she came to doing it, why it didn't happen?
Yeah, there's a lot of intrigue around this, a lot of theories. It's pretty simple.
By the way, this is Stephanie Cutter. I just got to say, I have a pet peeve about working with people who talk like this, who that's a lot of intrigue, and I just want to tell you that you have someone in your life like this, right? Stephanie Cutter is like in her 40s, maybe early 50s, and she talks like a 12-year-old. And I'm sure she's very accomplished, and she's worked on presidential campaigns, and I certainly haven't. So I don't mean to demean or criticize her. I'm just telling you it's a personal pet peeve, and you probably have it too. You're probably going to deal with it with your liberal sister-in-law at Thanksgiving tomorrow, where everything sounds like they're actually doing a teenager's TikTok video. But it's grating, and I know it's bad radio mojo to have you listen to an annoying voice, but this is important. Listen to this.
We wanted to do it. I hate to repeat this over and over, but it was a very short race with a limited number of days. And for a...
Can I just say something for a minute? Because they keep saying this. Oh, it was only 107 days, limited number of days. When she joined the race, she had the nomination handed to her. She didn't have to do a damn thing. On day one, when she joined the campaign, she had the exact same number of days until Election Day that Donald Trump had. Okay? And Donald Trump, by the way, had to run in a primary. He had to deal with all of those states' elections, state by state. He had to campaign there. He had to do rallies there. He had to spend money there that she never had to spend on a primary, or her predecessor never had to spend on a primary. Not to mention the fact that he had to go to court and defend himself against bogus, trumped-up charges in federal court in Florida, federal court in Washington, state court in Manhattan, city court in Manhattan, and then a state court in Georgia. And they're trying to say, oh, he had all these advantages and we only had 107 days. I'd love to see her go through what Trump had to go through leading up to those 107 days. But the bottom line is, from the moment she joined the campaign and decided she was coming into the race, she had the same number of days left in the calendar that Donald Trump had. Okay? So don't buy this fake narrative. The bottom line here, she is the problem, and they refuse to say it. They refuse to say how awful she is. Listen to the Joe Rogan excuse.
Candidate to leave the battleground to go to Houston, which is...
Okay, real quickly. This is the woman who's supposed to be in charge of these campaign decisions and about what interviews to do. And this is a pretty important one. Do you do Joe Rogan or not? And did you hear what she just said? Let me play it for you again.
Over and over, but it was a very short race with a limited number of days. And for a candidate to leave the battleground to go to Houston, which is a day off the playing field in the battleground, getting that timing right is really important.
Yeah, so here's the thing. Joe Rogan is not in Houston, you moron. Joe Rogan's not in Houston. She's the one trying to make this decision. She's the one responsible for this. She doesn't even know where Joe Rogan is. And I hate to point this out. Forgive me, because, again, I'm not an expert, up-talking, vocal fry teenager like Stephanie Cutter is here. She's a professional. But the decision to take a candidate from the battleground states and devote a day to do the Joe Rogan show, well, both candidates were faced with that exact same choice. You and your expertise decided, nope, not worth it, not going to do Joe Rogan, don't want to take our candidate off the battleground. Donald Trump said, hell yeah, I'll do it. I'll go sit and do a 3-hour interview with Joe Rogan. I'll be able to campaign the next day. Here's the thing. When Trump was campaigning, he hit like 3 different states in the same day. Did you notice Kamala Harris's schedule? She did 1 event a day. If she was lucky. She was lazy. She was lazy or incompetent. Or her team was incompetent. Take your choice. It's multiple choice. It could be all of the above. But you have 2 candidates. They're both faced with the same decision. Do you sacrifice a day on the battleground campaigning so you can sit in a studio for 3 hours with Joe Rogan? Or do you just stay out there and grind? Well, we have a perfect example of what happens based on which selection you choose, right? It's like those old choose your own adventure stories, you know? Choose your adventure, you go down that path, this happens. You go down that path, that happens. One candidate decided to skip a day on the campaign trail and do the Joe Rogan interview. That was Donald Trump. He won the election. The other candidate said, nope, not going to do that. I'll just stay on the campaign trail. Oh, by the way, if I don't do it, it reinforces what everybody already knows about me, which is the real reason that I didn't do the Joe Rogan interview is because I couldn't possibly survive for 3 hours talking to somebody about the issues or about anything without making a huge blunder and looking like a fool. So we decided to keep her out there campaigning. And how'd that work out? You lost. Do you think maybe it was the wrong decision? No. The fact of the matter is, Kamala Harris is a disaster. They knew it. Everyone knew it. The only way Kamala Harris was ever going to be the nominee for president is if she got it the exact way she got it. handed to her on a silver platter. She didn't have to work for it. She didn't have to put any effort into it. And that's been her entire political career. The one time she did run in a competitive race was in 2020, and she didn't even make it to the Iowa caucus. She was such a disaster, despite the fact that she had tens of millions of dollars and media stories pretending like she was the second coming of Ronald Reagan meets Abraham Lincoln. And she was awful. She was a disaster. She was a punchline. But then she was handed the vice presidency because, well, you know, Joe Biden promised a black woman, so we're going to give you a black woman. She got it without earning it. She got it without working for it. Now, before the 2020 presidential campaign, when she was a disaster, all her other elections took place in two jurisdictions, the city of San Francisco and county of San Francisco, and then the state of California, dominated by Democrats. You know the last statewide election she had in California? She actually ran against another Democrat? Yeah. See, in California, this thing called a jungle primary. Can we say jungle primary? I don't want to offend anyone. Let's call it a rainforest primary. They have what they call a jungle primary, where there's no party affiliation designated for the two candidates that end up going to the general election. In other words, you don't get a Republican winner and a Democrat winner. You just, everybody gets thrown into the same bucket, and the two candidates that finish in first and second in the primary, they end up squaring off in the general election. And California is so dominated by the Democrat machine and, by the way, at the exact same time, suffers from a completely incompetent, dysfunctional statewide Republican Party, that oftentimes the final two candidates for statewide election end up both being Democrats. And that was the case. The last time Kamala Harris ran in California before she was vice president, she ran against another Democrat, Congresswoman Sanchez from Southern California, who is actually, frankly, as crazy as the Sanchez sisters are, was a better option for the people of California than Kamala Harris. And so Kamala Harris, her entire political career, she runs in the county of San Francisco as district attorney. She runs as attorney general in the state of California. And then she runs as U.S. senator in the state of California. And she never has to face a tough Republican opposition. And she certainly never has to face any challenging questions from the media, because it's California and she's a Democrat and she's a woman and she's a woman of color. And so, well, yeah, she's got to be perfect, and we're going to do whatever we can to help her along, and that's what the media does. She finally faces opposition during the 2020 primaries from other Democrats, and she withers and dies. Then Biden gives her the vice presidency as a gift because he had to pay back a favor to James Clyburn in South Carolina, who handed him the primary on the promise that he would pick a black woman. And then she's given the presidential nomination from the Democrats because Biden steps down under very suspicious circumstances. They have no primary. She doesn't have to get any votes. She's given an entire campaign apparatus already constructed, and she gets $1.5 billion. And she is absolutely destroyed by a man that has been called a fascist and a criminal and a sexual predator and a foreign agent for a hostile enemy nation, who had been impeached twice, who had been convicted of federal crimes on trumped-up charges, with multiple states trying to remove him from the ballot. And she couldn't defeat. And now they're trying to tell you, well, the headwinds were so strong that this wasn't really a winnable race. I don't care who ran against Donald Trump. Trump was going to win. Oh, really? I'm curious. Experts, did you tell all those people who gave you $1.5 billion that was the situation? It's pretty great to say it in hindsight. We would have never been able to beat Trump. Really? You would have never been able to beat Hitler. Thanks for telling us now. Let me cut through all the crap for you. Let me cut through everything you hear on the cable networks. Let me cut through all the experts and all the navel-gazing and all the pontificating and all the numbers crunching and all of the rear-view mirror-gazing. And let me just boil down what went wrong. Because what went wrong with Kamala Harris? I'll tell you what went wrong with Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris. She showed herself to be an incompetent. I will leave you with this. Think about the one major decision she had to make in this entire campaign that was all on her. It was a great snapshot into what kind of president she would be. When you're evaluating someone to be the president, you say, okay, well, what kind of decisions will they make under fire, under pressure? Really big decisions, right? What was her one big decision that she couldn't say, oh, it was her fault, it was his fault. It was, the secretary of this's fault or that. No. It was all on her. What was the choice? Tim Walz as vice president of the United States. Boy, that was a great choice. What a great decision. Kamala Harris lost because Kamala Harris is awful. Now, thankfully, it's just you and me talking. Don't let the Democrats know, because God help me, I think they're going to nominate her again in 4 years. And that will be glorious. I'm Larry O'Connor. This is the Mark Levin Show.
Mark Levin.
Folks, have you ever thought about what charities and causes you give your hard-earned money to? Pure Talk, my cell phone company, supports veterans. As a veteran-led company, that's their passion project. And that's why Pure Talk has slashed $10 million in veteran debt. That's why they donate tens of thousands of dollars every month to help prevent veteran suicide. That's why they donate $50,000 to Micro Works, providing scholarships to veterans learning the trades after active duty. Now, isn't that a company you can get behind? Time to jump ship from these other three guys. There's a better option. Pure Talk gives you the same great coverage, America's most dependable 5G network, for half the cost. And you'll be supporting a company that is helping our vets. It's a win-win. Dial pound 250. Say keyword Mark Levin. You'll be connected to Pure Talk's U.S. call center. That's right. They invest in American jobs to better serve you. And remember, they're half the price of the big three. Go to puretalk.com/Levin today. That's puretalk.com/LEVIN. Switch to a company that invests in American jobs to better serve you. Again, go to puretalk.com/Levin. You'll get an additional 50% off your first month. Pure Talk, America's wireless company.
Larry O'Connor here, in for the great one. We are going to take your calls in the third hour here, and I appreciate you. I had so much on my mind that I want to get off, and I know that you would appreciate it. I had one last thing here on the lies about Kamala Harris, and the fact that they can't say that you're not allowed to criticize her. If you say that she's a terrible candidate, as I just did, I guess you're racist or you're sexist, or, in D.C., you're not informed, you're not intelligent. Here's what they're getting on MSNBC as political analysis. I've decided this is my favorite part of the election night meltdown. Here, listen to this.
Anyone who has experienced or been in the United States for any period of time and experienced this country's history and knows it cannot have believed that it would be easy to elect a woman president, let alone a woman of color. Mm-hmm. Let's just be clear. Mm-hmm. And nothing that was true yesterday about how flawlessly this campaign was run is not true now. I mean, this really was an historic, flawlessly run campaign. Queen Latifah never endorses anyone. She came out and endorsed. She had every prominent celebrity voice. She had the Taylor Swiftie to the Swifties. She had the Beehive. You could not have run a better campaign.
So that's Joy Reid, a very well-paid professional political analyst, telling the MSNBC audience she had a flawless campaign. And what's the evidence? Well, she got Queen Latifah, Taylor Swift, and Beyonce to endorse her. Doesn't get any better than that. They just don't get it. You do, because you listen to the Mark Levin Show.
He's here. Now, Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
It's Larry O'Connor sitting in for Mark Levin on this day before Thanksgiving, where I am, well, I'm so grateful. I'm grateful for this nation. I'm grateful for this election. Certainly, I'm grateful for the peace in our country post-election. I honestly was expecting to see Antifa taking to the streets. They still might before Inauguration Day, but it was such a resounding election that there was really nothing left for them to do. They were deflated. I'm grateful for Mark Levin and for new media. I'm grateful for conservative voices having outlets where we had been shut out for so long, intimidated and censored. I'm thankful for talk radio being able to allow those conservative voices to flourish for so many decades, from Rush Limbaugh all the way through the Great One, and helping to have my career as a morning radio host in Washington, D.C. I'm also grateful that right now it seems like there's a move toward freedom and liberty in this country after being on the brink of Marxism, because we've got voices like Mark Levin's, like we've got, well, all of the people that you turn to on a regular basis to be able to lead you through the cloud that the propaganda press gives you on a daily basis. The truth will always win out. The only question is how long it takes for the truth to get there. I am grateful for all of those things, and I'm grateful for you for participating and patronizing all of these important alternative media outlets that are here for you, that want to continue to build this movement. And so now that you know what I'm grateful for, why not we spend an hour here having a conversation together about what you're grateful for as well. And if the only thing that comes to mind is you're grateful that in about 50 days, it'll be Donald Trump putting his hand on the Holy Bible and swearing to protect and defend the Constitution, that's good enough for me. But why don't you share it with the vast audience at 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. There's another thing that I'm grateful for. But the only way we can really hammer home how eternally grateful I am and you should be about this little item is to actually take a quick walk down memory lane and remember what they were putting us through just 4 years ago on Thanksgiving. You see, I'm grateful that we're finally starting to see some accountability for the draconian, un-American, unconstitutional, anti-freedom, anti-liberty, authoritarian tactics that were used during the COVID-19 pandemic lockdown. You know, this election was exciting and it was fun and it was vindicating. It was cathartic. And seeing certain members of the cabinet get their positions and see the cabinet take form and take shape so you can start to envision what this Trump 2.0 presidency is going to look like, that's been exciting and fun. But yesterday, I think, was probably the best day of all. Yesterday was the day that we heard President-elect Trump's nomination to head the National Institute of Health. And I'll be honest with you, for as long as I've been following politics my adult life, all of the presidential transitions that I've witnessed that I can remember. I mean, I started paying attention to this stuff probably maybe the George Herbert Walker Bush presidency of 88. Really, maybe the Clinton 92 is when, as a young adult, I was following this stuff. Of all of these presidencies, I couldn't tell you who the director of the National Institute of Health was. Could you? Did you? Honestly, I mean, even the Secretary of Health and Human Services, I mean, I guess I knew who that was, right? Under Obama, Kathleen Sebelius. I couldn't tell you who it was under George W. Bush. Sorry. You know, it's just been recent times when that even matters. But boy, do I know now who's going to be the CDC director, who's going to be the FDA director, who's going to be the Secretary of Health and Human Services, and now the Director of National Institute of Health, Dr. J. Bhattacharya. I can never pronounce his name properly, and I'm sorry, Professor. The man who spoke out in the middle of the lockdowns, the man who is a expert in viruses and communicable diseases, who was a professor at Stanford University, a man who had all the pedigree and all the resume and all the credentials that you're supposed to respect in the realm of expertise in public health, the man who stepped out and said in the middle of the 2020 lockdown measures, this is wrong. The man who said that lockdowns are going to cause more harm than any good they might provide, and they're probably not going to provide any good at all. The man who said we are harming our children. We are harming each other. We are harming businesses. We are keeping people from getting medical checkups. They're going to be unhealthy and sicker and die, not because of COVID, but because of cancer that went unchecked, because they're afraid to go to the hospital. We are ruining people's lives, he said. And the lockdowns don't work. And he knew what he was talking about. He had the expertise, but he also had, thank you very much, science on his side. And he could look in real time at other countries that didn't do the draconian lockdowns, and they were fine. Countries in Europe that did not keep their kids home from school, and they were fine. As a scientist using powers of observation, he could say, hey, maybe there's another way. And he was silenced, he was ridiculed, he was bullied, he was intimidated, he was censored, he was banned by that Napoleonic dictator, Anthony Fauci, and his team of totalitarians that he put together in the public health sector. Yes, under President Trump. But I'll be honest with you, when President Trump rode into office in 2016, won the presidency, I don't think the public health regime was really a big priority for him. Oh, it is now. The man who was right all along and called out the people who were wrong and suffered the indignity of being mocked and ridiculed and name-called. He is now your director of the National Institute of Health. Marty Makary, professor at Johns Hopkins University. A man, when the COVID-19 shots were being pushed on people with mandates, forcing them on children, he stepped up and said, what are we doing? Children aren't even getting sick, let alone dying, and they're not vectors. They're not carrying the virus. And forcing these shots after shots after shots on people, Dr. Makary said, Dr. Marty Makary, a public health expert at Johns Hopkins University, stepped up and said, let's just let natural immunity take its course. People will get it, we treat it, and then they'll have natural immunity. And son of a gun, he was right. Look at where we are now. We have reached a certain level of immunity in this country. Not perfect immunity, but it didn't come from the shots. The people who were in charge telling Dr. Marty Makary to shut up, they told us the shots would give us immunity. They lied, or they were just wrong. Either way, we're the ones who were screwed because of it. Dr. Marty Makary was right. Now he's going to be running the FDA. And finally, after all of these years, after how many years, we're finally going to get some accountability. We're going to get some answers. These guys aren't going to just go in there and fix problems. No, they're going to find out who did what to us and name names. How is it possible that after 4 years, nobody in this administration actually bothered to say, okay, here's what we got wrong, here's what we learned, here's who was wrong, here's what they did? Well, of course, they didn't do it because they're the ones who are responsible. To be truly grateful that we are past this and we have sanity back, not just coming into this administration in the White House and in most levers of government, but in the public health sector, where we do need to have robust expertise making public health policies that the American people will believe and trust and respect. The fact that we're finally fixing that is so important for all of us. But to truly appreciate it, to truly sit down tomorrow and pray to the Lord and thank him for all of the blessings that we have, and include this turnaround in public health policy and the absolute destruction of the idea of a shutdown as a solution to a pandemic regime. To truly be grateful for that, we have to remember what they did to us. This was November 12th, 2020. Jake Tapper, you know, the very real, serious, truthful, honest, fair-dealing broadcaster and journalist, Jake Tapper. Here was the message they had with their expert. They had an expert. He was wearing a white lab coat on television, so you know he's an expert. I mean, he had the costume and wardrobe set. This is how he wanted you to celebrate your Thanksgiving 4 years ago.
Risky for traveling, driving or flying?
Oh, that's the easier. Traveling by car is much less risky because you have total control of the environment. You can get taken.
By the way, this is Dr. William Schaffner, professor at Vanderbilt University Medical Center. You know, Vanderbilt, that was the medical center that used to do transgender procedures on children until Matt Walsh at Daily Wire exposed them. They stopped doing that. Yeah, here he is giving you his expert advice during the pandemic.
Take out food, run into the restroom, do a lot of good hand hygiene, use a wipe on that gasoline pump, and you can control that environment. But if you're traveling by air or bus or train, you're subject to what everybody else around you is doing. They may not be masked. They're getting awfully close. So travel by car if you must travel.
And Professor, we know that get-togethers, even small ones, can spread the virus. In New Jersey alone, 5 coronavirus outbreaks were linked to Halloween parties. The new CDC guidelines for small gatherings include requiring everyone to wear a mask, even outdoors, avoiding direct contact, including handshakes and hugs, keeping music levels down to avoid people singing or trying to shout over the noise, avoiding potluck-style gatherings, and having one person serve all the food so multiple people are not handling the serving utensils. Is there anything else you can think of to add to the list?
Are you listening to this? The United States of America, land of the free, home of the brave, and it was just 4 years ago that we were being lectured to, with the furrowed brow of Jake Tapper, that this Thanksgiving you have to wear a mask even outdoors, avoid direct contact, handshakes, and hugs. At Thanksgiving, don't hug your loved ones. You will disappoint Jake Tapper. Keep music down to avoid singing. We don't want any singing because people will die if you sing at Thanksgiving. And avoid potlucks. Over on MSNBC, Katie Tur, this was her advice for her audience.
And that's going to do it for me today. If you're going outside, thank you, Anna. If you are going outside, wear a mask. Don't travel this holiday season. Stay home. Cook a turkey for yourself. Eat all of the mashed potatoes by yourself. That's what I'm going to do.
If you go outside, wear a mask. But don't go outside. Don't go anywhere. Just stay home and eat all the mashed potatoes for your health. Because that's the healthier option. God forbid you go outside, you know, get a few steps in, be a little active. Get your heart pumping a bit. Nope. Stay inside and eat all of the mashed potatoes because we care about your health. I hope you're as grateful as I am. That was 2020. What about a year later when there was more sanity? You know, Biden was in office. Everything calmed down. We had the shot. Everything was better, right? Here's CBS.
Hey, whoa, wait a minute. Where's your card? What's your status before you walk into my home?
This is tough because people are all over the map on this, and they're also all over the map with their risk tolerance. But the rapid tests have made this a lot easier.
Right.
Because whatever people's vaccination status is, we can actually confirm safety on the spot. So if it feels like it's going to be weird, maybe make it kind of fun. Say we're going to start with hors d'oeuvres in the garage. We'll have drinks, we'll do our rapid test, and then come on in, right? You can make it playful, make it fun, and then be able to enjoy the holiday because you're not worried about safety.
There you go. Come on over to the house, stay in the garage while we have hors d'oeuvres, and let me put this swab up your nose to test you before you come into my house, you dirty little viral vector. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. They've lost their power. They've lost their power, and we will never walk down that road again. Not as long as we keep holding our government accountable. Boy, am I thankful we've gotten through that, and we're never going back. How about you? What are you thankful for? 877-381-3811. I'm Larry O'Connor. It's the Mark Levin Show.
Mark Levin.
Larry O'Connor in for Mark Levin. Let's take some calls and find out what you're grateful for, or whatever's on your mind for that matter. 877-381-3811. How about Susan in Kansas City listening on KNSS? Happy Thanksgiving, Susan. All right, we'll try to swing back to Susan. We were told that there may be some gremlins in the lines tonight, but we'll get Susan back on. How about Bill in Fontana, California, listening on Sirius XM? Hey, Bill, thanks for calling in.
Hey, how you doing? Hey,
good.
I was listening to what you were talking about before with these so-called experts about the whole COVID thing. I'm thankful that I have good health, and that I'm thankful that God gave me a brain to not fall for all of the basically the Nazi tactics that the government was trying to force on us, and all these so-called experts. I was telling your screen here, I work in an industry where we work in the milling, cement, mining industries and stuff like that. We have to wear full-time respirators sometimes. Sometimes we have to wear masks because if we don't, we'll get silicosis, we'll die a painful, horrible, terrible death.
Wow.
We know what filtration levels are required. And the fact that they were telling people that these N95 masks and these paper masks were working for virus molecules and particles was absolutely insane, and we fought it all the way.
Well, God bless you, brother. And listen, you're right to be thankful that you have a brain. And here's the thing. A lot of people don't know this stuff. They don't. So we do rely on experts. We do rely on doctors. We do rely on public health.
Mark Levin, the great one.
The great one, Mark Levin.
Dial in now, 877-381-3811.
It's Larry O'Connor sitting in for Mark Levin. I'm not good at promoting myself. I should get better. Some of my colleagues are really good at it. They do it seamlessly. The fact that I'm actually telling you that I'm so bad at it, it shows how, well, bad I am at this. But listen, I'd love for you to follow me on social media, or if you can only just pick one, go ahead and follow my YouTube page, because I've got daily content there. Some of the stuff I do from Town Hall, we're going to be doing some live streaming there coming up soon. Daily refreshing content, the kind of stuff that you're hearing tonight from me. It's Larry O'Connor Media there at YouTube. Just search it out. You'll find it. Subscribe. Trust me. If you don't like it, you can unsubscribe. But I think there's some good stuff there that you'll enjoy. And I'd appreciate it. Thanks for that. And we're talking about, I just said I'd appreciate it because I'm grateful, because I'm thankful, because it's Thanksgiving. And I think it's good to reflect on what we're grateful for. You know, Dennis Prager, talk radio colleague, who was very, back before I got into this business, I was a regular listener of talk radio, and Dennis was one of my favorite programs. He used to talk about the fact that gratitude is at the root of happiness. The happiest people are usually the most thankful people. Because if you're grateful for what you have, then you're not bitter and angry about what you don't have. And usually when people are unhappy, it's because they're looking at things that they wish they had instead of actually recognizing what they do have. And so on a thankful day, and Dennis is facing some medical issues right now, but I bet he's still grateful for the life that he has and for everything that God's given him. So on this Thanksgiving Eve, we should reflect on the stuff that makes us thankful. It'll lead us to happiness, ultimately. And it'll make us appreciate those things that we have when we don't have them. That's why I wanted to play those flashback audios for you just now of what it was like during the pandemic. And the fact that now, because of this election, finally we'll have some accountability, we'll have some leadership, and we'll have some trust restored with the American people and our public health institutions. You know, obviously the biggest casualty of the COVID-19 pandemic were the people who died. The second casualty was trust. Trust. This whole believe the experts. You know what? We do have to believe the experts in some things. But when the experts betray their trust with us, when they lie to us, when they tell us mixed messages, when they change their expertise on a moment's notice, we raise our hand and say, hey, wait, that doesn't make sense. You told us before we shouldn't wear masks. Now you're saying we have to wear masks. Explain that to me. And they look at you like you're the problem. Like, how dare you even ask that? What are you talking about? And they gaslight you, and then they try to silence you and censor you. You know, you get COVID-19. And by the way, listen, I'm reflecting on the cultural phenomenon of the shutdown. And I am reflecting on what happened and how it affected us. I am not giving medical advice here. If you are turning to me, Larry O'Connor, morning radio host on WMAL in Washington, D.C., if you are turning to me for medical advice, okay, sooner rather than later. If you're following my advice on your health, it's not going to work out well for you. That's not my expertise. But I can comment on what happened during this shutdown and how outrageous it was, and how we Americans who yearn for freedom every day and hate the idea of any liberty being ripped from us, that we were forced against our will into these lockdowns and into this totalitarian regime, all under the guise of health. And you go to your doctor, you get the virus, you go to your doctor, you're having a tough time. The doctor says, you know what, listen, I want you to try this. It's called ivermectin. Ivermectin, which was a medication that was approved by the FDA years ago for viruses like malaria and other antiviral. They get to try this, and it helps you, and you're a success story. And the doctor prescribing ivermectin for you ended up being really positive, right? And so now you get through this case of COVID, and you're on the other side of it, and you're feeling great, and you want to share that news. So you go to your Facebook page, and you say, I want to tell you a story. I got COVID-19. I was having a tough time of it. My doctor said, listen, why don't you try this ivermectin? It might work for you. I've had good success with other similar infections, viral infections. Maybe it'll work for you. And it did. And then you say on your Facebook page, my doctor prescribed it to me. I tried it. It worked. If you're having a tough time, or if you know someone who's having a tough time, ask your doctor, get their advice, and see if they'll prescribe ivermectin for you. If you shared your opinion, your story, the reality that happened to you with ivermectin and your doctor, and all you did was say that on your Facebook page, recommending to other people, listen, just ask your doctor, maybe it'll work for you. You were banned. You were censored. You were blacklisted. Your account was suspended because the government told Facebook to do that. Well, I don't know what you call that, but I don't call it freedom. And no one's been held accountable. No one. And we're supposed to just move on? We're just supposed to walk away? I don't think so. And this is why we should be thankful, man. This is why we need to be thankful. How about Jonathan in Alexandria listening on my home station, WMAL? Look at you, Jonathan. You get to wake up with me and then go to sleep with me. It's like my wife, Jonathan.
Hey, thank you, Larry. I just wanted to say I've noticed, I've listened to you. When you take up for Mark Levin hosting, you step up your game like nothing else, and that's just fantastic.
Hey, I appreciate it. Thanks for letting my boss know that on my regular gig, I pretty much phone it in. It's true. I go through the motions. But for the Mark Levin show, I bring it, Jonathan. Thank you for that.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do, and I appreciate it. And I do have a little story about the vaccinations. I got vaccinated. I was kind of forced into it. And 6 months after I got the vaccination, I got COVID. 6 months after that, I got cancer. 2 months after that, I had a heart attack.
Oh, my God.
And my cancer's now turned to stage 4. And I'm so happy I got the vaccination.
Oh, Jonathan, that's awful. I'm so sorry for you, brother. Well, you got an army of prayer warriors here in your name, Jonathan and Alexandria, and you will be in our prayers this holiday season, man. I'm so sorry to hear that happen.
So glad we won the election. I am so glad that we got sanity back in the world. My brother is a huge Trump supporter, and I've got my little American flag pin on. So I'm.
Well, God bless you, Jonathan. I love hearing that gratitude, and you keep fighting. Listen, Trump takes a bullet whizzing past his face, ripping part of his ear off. He gets up and throws that fist in the air and says, "Fight, fight, fight!" And he rallied the nation, and we fought and we won. You better get up on your feet and you fight, 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 Jonathan. You got this. Right, brother?
God in my back corner. I got instant today, which I'm very happy about. But let's just go America, and thank you, Larry and Mark Levin and Bongino and Chris Plant, all of them.
Oh, the whole team. Thanks, man. You name checked us all. And don't forget my buddy Vince Colonnese in the afternoons on WMAL too. He is a rising star as well. Thanks, Jonathan. Let's go to Fred, Kansas City, Kansas. That's got to be KCMO, right? Not WCMO. Hey, Fred, thanks for calling the Mark Levin Show.
Yeah, make sure you tell Mark that he's my second favorite, the great one.
Wait a second. Who's your favorite?
Both are great. Jackie Gleason.
Oh, of course. He was the original great one. I will let Mark know that.
Oh, no, I think Mark's so special, it's not even, you can't even say the word.
Mark Levin, if I may say this on his program, he is absolutely irreplaceable. He is the essential voice that we have right now. We would be lost without him. And thank God he shows up every single day.
Here's what I was going to say about Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And I believe this is a true story. I prayed to God on several occasions. I'm like Trump. I believe that God had him turn his head when he did, or else it would have been game over. But I believe this. Not only if Kamala wins, do we get worse of what you've talked about with the shutdowns, the children, etc. I believe that if she won, 3 to 6 months later, within 3 to 6 months, China takes Taiwan. We send our little trans fleet over there, half caring because they don't care. And Russia, Iran, North Korea, all of them are waiting, and it could have been the end. And so, long story short, I prayed to God that the only hope we had was if Donald Trump wins, if he gets involved or he sends his son back here, because I think it would have been the end of it. And thank God, and again, I'm thankful for everyone in the country, everyone in the planet, that he won.
Brother Fred in Kansas City, your voice was heard, and I appreciate that, and thank you for your prayers. I'll only say one thing. I don't think you're wrong about China and Taiwan and about the international crisis we would have if Kamala Harris and whatever pathetic team she put together in national security took control in January. Thank God that did not happen. I just want to say one thing, though, quickly. When you talk about our military and your characters, I understand why people have a suspicious view of where our military is right now because of the things that make the headlines, because of the obvious misdirection of the leadership at the Pentagon and the priorities that they have telegraphed to the world that have been the most important things for them. And I know all of the issues that you were focusing on. I get it. I do. And it worries me as well. And it needs fixing. But I have been fortunate enough I live in Annapolis, Maryland. It's the home of the United States Naval Academy. And my daughter is a graduate. She's actually in the fleet now. She's an officer in the Navy. And she's engaged to a Marine officer, a Marine Corps officer. They graduated from the Naval Academy together. He went Marines, she went Navy, and they're going to be married this next year. I have been fortunate enough in the last 5-6 years here in Annapolis to be surrounded by these young midshipmen who become officers in the Navy and the Marine Corps. And as terrifying as it may seem, when you see some of the mistakes and blunders and mismanagement and lack of leadership, when you see all of the things that are emphasized in our military right now that make the headlines, that seem to be far afield from the core mission of our armed services, which is to be the biggest, baddest military on the planet so that our enemies don't even think about threatening us, and when they do, they get walloped. I want you to know that this young group of officers, and I know I'm biased, but I don't care. You listen to talk radio programs recognizing that the host is going to have a bias. The young officers, they see through it. They see through the bull. They know their mission. They know what's wrong. They are getting an education, and they are being formed as young officers right now, despite all of the problems in our military. And we still have that capability. We just need to tweak at leadership. We need those at the top at the Pentagon to be replaced, and we need these great young officers and enlisted and NCOs. We need them to be empowered to do what they know how to do. That's all our military needs. Of all the institutions in our country that needs fixing, the military will be the quickest one to fix. And I have full faith in the team that the president is putting together. If something bad happens, this military is ready. They just need leadership. I promise you that. All right, let's go to. We got one. All right, let's take a quickie here. We'll come back more of your. I love hearing your calls, and I love hearing what you're thankful for, and especially your reflections on not just the election, but this stellar transition process and where we're headed now in just 50 days with Trump 2.0 and the opportunity to really fix this country. And, well, I'm going to go ahead and say it, to make America great again. More of your calls at 877-381-3811. It's Larry O'Connor in for the great one, Mark Levin.
Mark Levin.
My name is Larry O'Connor. I'm sitting in for Mark Levin here. You're going to hear me a bit over the next month, probably, as Mark takes a few days off here and there. And my buddy Ben Ferguson and I will be swapping days and keeping you entertained, energized, educated, and informed, and hopefully activated as we all link arms and continue past through Election Day into this transition process and the next presidency. The work is not over. The work has just begun, and we're thrilled to be a part of it. Thanks for listening to the Mark Levin Show tonight. I just want to give you an update on a story here. As we talk about what we're thankful for, and as we have such hope and aspirations and optimism about what can be done now that we have a functioning president poised to take over with what looks to be a stellar cabinet and a clear direction and actually a plan to fix what's broken instead of this cadaver-like caretaker we've had that's just ruined things for the last 3+ years. You may have seen stories yesterday about how Donald Trump was going to ruin the country and ruin against Canada and Mexico. 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico until they secured the border, stopped the migrant crisis, and stopped the flow of fentanyl. Well, right after he made that announcement yesterday, the peso tanked to the U.S. dollar. I don't know if you saw that. On the world monetary markets, the peso was the worst performing currency of the day after Trump made this announcement. And the president of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum, she said, "No, I'm not going to do that. No, you raise tariffs on me, I'll raise tariffs on you." Trust me, the last thing Mexico wants is that. We are the biggest consumer market on the planet. Nobody wants to mess with us and get into a trade war with us or a tariff war with us. Well, let me give you an update, because I know you saw experts all over the news telling you how this was reckless, it was terrible, and it's going to ruin the economy even before he takes office. Donald Trump on Truth Social just about an hour ago, quote, "Just had a wonderful conversation with the new president of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum Pardo. She has agreed to stop migration through Mexico and into the United States, effectively closing our southern border. We also talked about what can be done to stop the massive drug inflow into the United States and U.S. consumption of these drugs. It was a very productive conversation." One phone call before he even takes office. And our current president couldn't bother to do it for the last 4 years. I'm Larry O'Connor. It's the Mark Levin Show. Happy Thanksgiving.